Hi y'all, welcome to Bexcellent Living. I'm Brandy. So today I'm going to be talking about fall planting for a fall garden. It's a little late in the season for a lot of things, but there are still some things that you can get into the ground, like some brassicas that can tolerate a little bit of frost and things that grow quickly in a short amount of time. So let's get started. So let's talk about frost dates. Go to farmersalmanac.com and type in your zip code. I believe that's the correct web address. You can just Google it or search Farmer's Almanac, first frost date, last frost date, and it'll just pop up there. So it's the Farmer's Almanac, and then you can type in your zip code. And it will give you an approximate. And so in my area, the approximate first frost date this fall, they said October 2nd, which to me seems a little late in the season. I feel like typically we may get some frost in September, like towards the end of September. So, you know, like I said, it's not 100%. Now there are some, vegetables that can tolerate a little bit of frost, that can tolerate the cold better than others. So we will talk about some of those as well in this video. But I also want to mention that the Farmer's Almanac was not accurate on our last frost date this spring. It said May 7th, and our last frost date, I don't know the exact day it was, but I remember we had snow on Mother's Day this year. So typically, like in our area, we always say wait to plant your garden until Mother's Day weekend, or check your 10-day forecast. Not frost in that 10-day forecast or freezing temperatures, you're probably okay to start planting things. But there are some vegetables that can tolerate some frost that you can plant before that last frost date. But we won't talk about that today. We will talk about that in another video. So here's a really handy tool that I purchased this year. It's Clyde's Vegetable Planner. I got mine from Roots and Refuge Farm, but I know that they sell them at Clyde's. It's called Clyde's Vegetable Planting Chart.com. So you can find it there online. But what you do is you line this number up. This is the fall side. So you line this right here up with your last approximate frost date. So mine was October 2nd. I'm just going to put it right there. Okay. And then you can see what you can plant now. So today is August. Today's the 12th. So right around here, the 16th, maybe you might want to look. In the check marks, that's the expected harvest dates from when you plant in the spring. Okay, and then these right here is late. The LP stands for late planting, or last outdoor planting dates, indoor seeding dates. Okay, and so we're in August here, and it looks like we can plant some spinach, but I'm going to tell you there are other things that you can plant that don't line up with this chart, and I'll show you why, and I'll show you how here in a little bit. Here on this side of the chart says spring, and then you line this up with your last expected frost date. So I'm going to go May 17th because I know it's later than what the Farmer's Almanac says. Okay, so then it will tell you what you can plant when. So over here are all the different vegetables, and over here are all the different times. The first planting, start seeds indoors. This is when you can expect a harvest for all those. Okay. If 50 days is correct with much time till our first frost date, which would be October 2nd. If that is correct, you can plant anything that will mature in 50 days or less, as in like after the seeds germinate. From germination to maturity, you have 50 days. So we have some beans here. Beans typically don't take super long. There are some beans that take longer than others, so I'm going to show you. These are all like green bean varieties here. And I had marked some of these. I was going to plant these this fall, and I did not because my beans are doing really well, actually, and I have plenty for storage this winter. So this one here says 55 days to maturity, and it takes 4 to 6 days to germinate. Now, with the weather that we've been having, I believe that germination will be really fast, just a couple of days. But this one takes, this is the strike green bean, and this one takes a little bit longer to reach maturity. So that wouldn't be one that you should plant now. This one here says 50 to 60 days maturity. This one would be kind of iffy. You might get some green beans, you might not. The Royal Burgundy green beans, which are really good ones, says 50 days to maturity. Now, because I planted these this spring, I'm going to tell you that I don't think if you planted these, you would get very many green beans. Only because I feel like these are producing heavier now than they did in the beginning. But you might still get some. I mean, if you have seeds and you want to try, go for it. And then these here, the Contender green beans, I also planted some of these. These say 48 to 55 days. These would probably be your best bet. I mean, it still says 4 to 6 days to germinate, but like I said, in the weather here that we've been having, they'll probably germinate quickly in a couple days, and you could probably most definitely do green beans. Next on the list are beets. So this is Detroit Dark Red. These are Tall Top Early Wonder. This says 55 days to maturity, but they can take a little bit of a frost. So because they're underground, they'll take a little frost. I believe you can still have a harvest of beets if you plant them now. These here say 60 days to harvest. So a little bit longer, but I think you can still have a harvest. You can also eat some of the beet tops. You don't want to cut off more than half of what's there because they need the sun to produce the root. But they are really good. I love beets. Peas, even though they can take a frost, a small, slight frost at the beginning, at least the varieties that I have take too long. So this says 60 days, this says 70 days, and then you also have to add in how long it takes them to germinate. So there's really not enough time to do peas. Now let's talk herbs. So cilantro, I feel like it takes a while for it to germinate. Now this is just, I probably got this at Dollar Tree or Dollar General or something years ago. Obviously I haven't used it. Let's see, what's it say? Sell by 12/14. So this was from 2014. I have not used this. I have another pack of it that's opened. And it just keeps reseeding itself. I let it go to seed and it will reseed, and so it just keeps coming up in the same place. But with cilantro, it lasts through frosts very well. This is very frost hardy. Last year, I think I was picking cilantro into November, possibly December, until it was completely covered with snow and froze hard. So cilantro is a good one that you can plant now, and especially with like tomatoes and stuff coming in, you can throw your tomatoes in the freezer, and then when the cilantro is ready, you can pull them out, chop them up, and you can make yourself some fresh salsa with that. Oregano. Okay, so oregano is a perennial. So even though it will take a while before you can harvest it, it says 60 days to maturity. You can definitely plant that now. You can plant that now, get it established, get it started. It'll come back next spring. You might even be able to take some clippings from it and use some already this year. Catnip is the same. It's another, this says annual. This says annual, but I'm almost positive it's part of the mint family and it's a perennial. I don't know. This is my first year growing it. But it says 55 days to maturity. So you can try it because you can just harvest it before frost. You can just cut it all off and dry it all before frost. Same thing with basil. I think basil says 60 to 75 days till it's mature, but you can take it at any time. It's just the leaves. You don't want it to flower anyway. So, I mean, if you know that there's a frost coming, just harvest the whole plant. Just take it all. You can bring it in the house. You can make pesto with it. You can dry it. You can do whatever your little heart desires with basil. This is one of our favorites, the dwarf Greek. Now, the leaves are itty bitty, real tiny, but the flavor is amazing. Here's another one of our favorites. Now it's taped shut, but it's dark opal basil. And I have some of that planted in between my tomato plants. And the same thing, like it says, this one doesn't say, but you know, about 60 days to maturity. But you can go ahead and harvest that right before the frost and use it up. Okay, next on the list is lettuce. So here's a bunch of different varieties that I have. This says 45 days to maturity. This is 40 days to maturity. I mean, it only takes a few days to germinate. This is 45 days to maturity, and it germinates in about a week. So it might be cutting it close, but just like the basil and stuff, if you know that there's going to be a frost, so just pick it all. Eat what you have. I like doing lettuce in rows, not for heads, but for like the cut and come again. So you just cut it off and it keeps growing. It'll grow, continue to grow. This one is a really good mix. That's a burpee. That might be about the same as this one. It's a little different maybe, but one of our favorites here is the super red romaine lettuce. We really like that one. It says 50 days to maturity. It can tolerate some cold. So, you know, like I said, just cut it. We cut it before it's mature. So we cut it and we use it in salads, and it just keeps coming back. Marvel of Four Seasons. That one is cold tolerant as well. It says 60 days to maturity, but it may take a frost. I don't know. You may as well try it. And then this is Butter Crunch. I have not tried this one yet. And going right along with the lettuce, then we have kale. This can take some cold, probably some frost too. This is 55 to 65 days to harvest, so that might be pushing it. I'm not sure. You may as well try. It doesn't hurt to try anything, right? This is cold tolerant, 60 days to maturity. Here's some arugula. This says cold tolerant, 40 days to maturity. So this would be a really good one to plant right now. Here's some Swiss chard. That is 45 days to maturity. And it's also cold tolerant. So all of those would be really good to plant right now. Now let's talk brassicas, like kohlrabi and cabbage, and here we have some broccoli. All of those can take some cold temperatures and possibly even a frost. I'm not 100% sure on that. But like I said, try it. It doesn't hurt to try. This says 55 to 60 days, maturity, 3 to 5 days to germinate. If it can take a little bit of frost, perfect. This one here is probably about the same. It is. Here's some cabbage. Erlina. I think that's how you say that. It says 60 days to harvest. This might be cutting it a little close for cabbage. I don't know if you would get a very big head or get much But just like the lettuce, you can cut it early, and it might not be a tight head, it might not be perfectly ready, but you still get some food out of it. This broccoli, 60 days to maturity, and it's cold tolerant. So it probably will take some, could take some frost. But like I said, try it. You don't know unless you try, right? And here's calabrese, and 55 days to maturity. So you can try that one too. So I'm just going to go ahead and plant some things for fall right here in this bed. So I'm going to pull all the weeds, and I'm going to go ahead and start planting. Okay, this bed is now all cleaned out and ready to plant. I don't know if you can see, I just used my little trowel tool and made lines where I want my rows to go. I'm going to do 2 rows of beets, 2 rows of kale there, 2 more rows of beets, and then a row of lettuce here. And then in between, there's space in between the beets and the kale right here. I don't know if you can see there's space right there. I'm going to go ahead and plant a row here of, or 2, I could probably fit 2 rows, 2 rows in here of radishes. And the same here, 2 rows of radishes here. Then that will give me a harvest of radishes before the beets are ready. The beets will start getting bigger. The kale will be poking out, and then these beets over here, and the beets over here, they should have plenty of space between the kale, and then the lettuce here. I don't know if it will need shade or not. It is hot today. It's August. It's going to be hot for probably about 3 or 4 more weeks, but I'm not too worried about whether or not those will bolt. So there you have it, fall garden, seeds that you can start now. I will definitely be putting more lettuce and probably some of that arugula into my ground. I've already planted some broccoli and cauliflower and some early cabbage, but something's been eating it, so I don't know. It's kind of disappointing to me. I might try planting again, but my hopes are really not that high until I figure out the culprit of my plants disappearing. I hope to get a big harvest there.